Trigun's an interesting anime. It's one of those weird ones that it's like, for me, it's like with Rurouni Kenshin and in a way Cowboy Bebop, that it's one of those Toonami anime that I feel like I always had a presence of in my mind. Like, I feel like I know what it's about and I know what happened, but also I didn't remember a thing that happened in it, you know?
I didn't watch any of those. Also, it was on Adult Swim, not Toonami. Can you get it together, please?
What? It's Toonami
Surprise,
block
I'm here.
of Adult Swim. Hi. Hi. Welcome. This is an episode of Cold Hard Complaints with King of Archers.
It's crazy. I'm gonna hijack this and actually make my own video. I'm recording it right now.
Oh my god. Piracy comes in. Anyway, no, we're doing a video on Trigun because King is obsessed with Trigun.
We've tried to start this so many times, and all I've done is mention how much I want to kiss Vash. He's so great. He's peak baby girl.
But because of the release of the new series, Trigun Stampede, I felt like, you know, this is a really good time for us to come together, have a discussion about it, and go over an anime that, the original 90s anime that is beloved, but isn't really talked about a whole lot, you know? And I wanted to kind of dig into it and go in it with a true expert.
Yeah, my credentials are that when I was like 5, I was reading Trigun, and I should not have. Have you read that manga? It's, oh my god, there's so much wrong with it. One of the opening flaps, because in the manga, there's like the normal like cover art, and then like when you open it, there's like omake, or omake,
yeah,
whatever it's called. There's an omake of the cover art to make it look super silly. And I think it's the second one, I think it's second of Trigun Maximum. It's Wolfwood holding his cross, but the omake, he's holding a blow-up doll. And I was 5, and I was looking at that. I should not have been seeing that. Trigun was, for me, like the first anime that was like wholly mine. Because none of my like brothers watched it, and like my uncle who got us all into anime also didn't watch it. So Trigun was like my anime. Like everyone else was watching Naruto and One Piece and Inuyasha, like everyone knew those ones, but Trigun was like my like little like niche little guy, you know? It was great.
It's a really interesting anime because it's definitely anime. You can tell by its design and, you know, its overall tone that it's an anime, you know.
It's
but
such a 90s anime.
It's such a 90s anime, but it's like its art style and its setting and everything about it makes it feel more American, you know?
That was the whole point. The artist, specifically Night Owl has specifically gone on record like multiple times that it's a very American anime. In the anime, and also I'm pretty sure in the manga, it's very clearly stated that Vash doesn't speak Japanese.
Oh, right. You're right. I remember that scene.
Yeah, they're all very like Americanized. It's very like English kind of oriented. Wolfwood himself has some references to certain people, but he was also very much created to be like a New Yorker. In the original anime, he speaks, and the manga, he speaks with a vastly different dialect. I think it's the Kaisei dialect, which is a very, like, kind of, like, essentially it would be, like, a dialect that you kind of hear if it was, like, a New Yorker. Kind of, like, more, like, mafia kind of styling voice.
Yeah, trying to give him that, like, Italian-American New Yorker vibe.
Yeah. He's got the vibe. But it's a very, very, like, even the names, like, those aren't, like, Americanized names. Those are just the names Night Owl gave them.
Yeah, there's a lot of anime out there that have an American influence in them. I mean, especially back in that time period, you had other anime like Cowboy Bebop is going to be the classic example, and the classic one to compare with Trigun. Even though they are in the soul of themselves very different series, they even like further than Cowboy Bebop, you could tell like there's very much a specifically American vibe to what's going on in Trigun. Particularly, I mean, especially Old West vibe. I mean, because the whole thing feels like it's an Old West movie, or like feels like it's taken from an Old West movie. You know?
Yeah, and that's like the whole point about it. It's great.
Exactly.
It's the most Western sci-fi you'll ever see. Like, Cowboy Bebop is sci-fi Western, but Trigun is Western sci-fi, you know?
Yeah, where like if you didn't know the context behind some things, you would just think it's in the Old West, in like a weird version of the American West.
Yeah, like even the names of places, I think it's more apparent in the anime. But, like, a lot of places are named after, like, old American towns. Like, in the manga, specifically, Meryl at one point goes on vacation to New Miami. Like, those are all, like, places
Oregon,
that they
New
go
Oregon
to.
is
Yeah.
a place, and I remember that. That was one that stuck out to me.
Yeah, in the anime, Wolfwood and Vash argue about whether or not they're going to New Oregon or New Kansas.
We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah, anyways.
We should actually get into...
What is Trigun?
Yeah, what is Trigun? Trigun is... King, do you want to start this off?
Trigun is a serious show disguised as the goofiest show. It's an interesting Western setting where the sci-fi is so non-existent that you almost forget that it's a sci-fi.
Yeah, it feels like it takes place on Earth for a lot of it, like it's just a really arid area of Earth. You know, it feels like it does feel like it's the American West in a lot of ways. It doesn't feel like if you didn't know, or if you didn't see people with a whole bunch of machine guns and stuff every now and then, or with
mechanical
cars
arms and cars,
mechanical arms, or
in the anime, like a bunch of giant spiders coming out of nowhere.
A giant sand steamer, you know?
Yeah. It's very, like, steampunk in that way. Like, I think when I first started reading Trigun, I thought it was more steampunk. I was not prepared for how sci-fi it was going to get.
It's very interesting, because, like, I think the anime does a really good job in that. Is, like, and we'll get to this a little bit later, is the anime does a really good job of, like, bringing you slowly into that world.
Yeah.
The original 90s anime, where at the beginning, the first episode starts out with our titular character, Vash the Stampede, who is a lovable idiot.
He's the hottest man in the entire world, and everyone wants a piece of it.
Everyone literally wants a piece of it. He's literally worth $60 billion double dollars.
Hot.
And everyone's searching for him, right? That's where we open up with our two characters, Millie and Meryl, who are insurance workers trying to locate this man called the Human Typhoon, who's been causing chaos all over the world.
Humanoid typhoon, thank you.
The humanoid
Pushes
typhoon,
glasses up.
correct. And in that first episode, no one really knows what he looks like, but they run into, a whole bunch of mysterious characters, like an old skilled gunman, and this one dude who's like literally like 7'9", like 12 feet tall, has a giant green mohawk and a mechanical arm and a boomerang that is attached to that arm that he can retract.
It's really weird considering the, like, amount of, like, normal looking people in the anime, and then just, like, every now and then you get, like, this freak of nature and you're like, whoa, where am I?
And also this crime against nature exists.
Yeah, like, whoa, okay.
Everything about, like, the beginning, it makes you feel like, okay, this is a really Western world. Also, there's this guy with a giant mechanical arm here. What's going on with that? So it sets up that this is a lot like our world, but also it's definitely not, but it's kind of like our world, and then it gets more and more into how it's not.
It's also great because the first episode, you're introduced to Vash, and he looks so serious, and he's, like, so impressive because he's still sitting at the bar while everyone else has fled, and the entire, like, bar is just completely destroyed. And then he, like, walks up and he pulls a gun out, and then it cuts to black, and you're like, whoa, he's so cool. And then,
Ooh,
like,
he's like a badass.
After you meet Meryl and Millie, it cuts back, and he's the dumbest person you have ever met. The first time you ever hear him speak, he's gasping for air after he's, like, hid in sand, and then he does a lizard crawl away from bullets. He's the goofiest. It's such a great setup for how the rest of the anime is going to go, between these serious moments and this reminder that Vash is not who everyone thinks he is. And you're the only one privy to that information. You almost feel immediately like you're friends with Vash, because everyone else is like, whoa, crazy, like, he's so scary and bad and awful. And you're like, he's just a little guy. What are you talking about? Are we looking at the same person? He's so goofy.
Everyone looks at him and sees, like, Clint Eastwood, right? They see, like, the guy in the man with no name, and, like, the good, the bad, and the ugly. They see this rugged gunslinger who could do anything. And then, but when you as an audience member are looking at him, you're seeing fucking Bugs Bunny, you know?
Yeah, it's great.
This guy doesn't follow our logic or our rules. He is a Looney Tune.
That's so true. And even Meryl, when you first meet her and she first meets Vash, she thinks the same thing. She's like, there's no way this can be Vash because this guy's a total buffoon. Meanwhile, Millie is more on the side. Everyone treats her kind of like a dummy because she's a bimbo. She's great. I love her. I adore Millie to death. But despite her having like this like airheadedness about her, she's the only person that believes Vash is actually Vash. It takes so long for Meryl, in the anime anyways, to accept that Vash is Vash. Meanwhile, Millie is like, oh, hey, what's up, Vash? And he's like, hello. And he just accepts it. It's great.
Yeah, Millie really takes him at his word, you know, and is just like, I think she recognizes a kindred idiot.
Yeah, I think so. Kindred spirits.
A kindred spirits. A fellow dumbass who's incapable of lying.
But it's very interesting because this goes on for the entire anime of Vash is this silly, goofy guy, but there's something serious going on. And even in, like, the next couple of episodes, you see Vash has, like, insane luck. It's weird how lucky he is. People will shoot at him. Like the bar getting destroyed, everything around him will collapse, but he somehow always manages to survive. But he always has this kind of goofy air to it. And it's not until later that you realize that this goofy air is him literally pretending. Because what you saw at the beginning was Vash. He is an extremely skilled gunman. He is the most talented person on that planet. He is a god above men. But he's also just a silly, goofy guy. And he wants everyone so badly to think he's a silly, goofy guy.
He wants to feel... I think he's like trying to trying to humanize himself to people, you know? He's like... show that he's like a fun person who everyone can get along with.
He does not want people to think he's as scary as people say he is. Because they're right. He is scary. He is dangerous. But he is not. He doesn't want to be. He knows the power he has, and he doesn't want it. But he has it. And we'll get more into why he has it later.
Yes, exactly. So what is Trigun at the end of it? Trigun is this series that is... at the beginning of it is very much a, I guess, villain of the week kind of show, you know, where it's different small towns, different little environments that our characters, our principal cast of Vash the Stampede, Millie and Meryl, and occasional companion Wolfwood, all getting in ridiculous situations that try to uncover a little bit more about who Vash really is, why he's like this, why everyone's after, why he's such a typhoon, and also just more about the world, because you really get no explanation of the world at the beginning, and over time you learn more and more and more.
You get thrown into this world with absolutely no knowledge. Meanwhile, everyone in the show knows what's going on. So you're sitting there watching it going, what do they know that I don't know? Because I know that Vash is a silly, goofy guy, but everyone is so scared of him. What happened? And that's like the big thing, is this constant thing in the back of your mind as you're watching going, what happened?
Yeah, there's always something that feels like it's not being said, you know? And not in a way that people are like, I think people are just like not scared to say it. There's no reason to say it because they all know.
Yeah, it's this just unspoken rule that, like, yeah, of course everyone knows. What do you mean you don't know what happened? And you do end up learning little by little. You're like, okay, something happened in this city called July, but what happened in July? But everyone is like, well, we don't want to talk about it because it was just so horrific and it was caused by Vash. And then, like, you later find out, well, Vash destroyed the city of July. And you're like, how could Vash destroy the city of July? He's just like a little guy. He's the silliest little goober on the planet. What made him destroy the city?
Yeah, how could Bugs Bunny set off a thermonuclear warhead?
Yeah, exactly. Literally. What do you mean Bugs Bunny destroyed a town? Like, what? That's insane. Yeah, it's such a cool, interesting dynamic getting into it, and I can see why anime viewers especially, like anime-only people, really clung to it, because it was such like a unique little thing, especially like back in the day, because a lot of anime, like today and even back then, it started you off introducing you to the characters and then telling you the story, but Trigun flipped it on its head and started showing you the story and then introduced you to the characters later.
But talking a little bit more about what was happening at that time, you know, this is like the beginning of the more rapid growth of anime in the West, right? When we did our previous video together, we talked about Hitalia, which is like the beginning of like mass home media releases and like the very beginning of streaming anime, that whole thing starting to become a real thing. This is well before that. This is really early 2000s, like 2003, I think is when Trigun came to America. And this is like the birth of the Toonami block in the United States. So for Western anime fans who may not have had like the Sci-Fi Channel or like other channels where anime was sometimes shown, you know, this is like your first exposure to anime that's beyond Pokemon. That's when you have like Dragon Ball Z coming in more. You have, again, Rurouni Kenshin, which is thematically a really similar, a lot more similar to Trigun than the other big show, which is Cowboy Bebop, which is stylized a little bit closer to what you get from Trigun because they're both kind of have a Western feel to it. But like if you look at those three shows in particular, Cowboy Bebop, Rurouni Kenshin, and Trigun, they kind of defined like what anime is for a whole generation of people, like what adult anime is, what action anime is. And that's, I think Trigun is one of the ones that is beloved as part of that series, but it's not one that, I don't think its anime adaptation was on its own good enough to carry it to maintaining that popularity to younger generations. So you have a lot of people in our gender who are like, you know, a little younger than us, or even me, who was like at the tail end of when that was being a thing, who didn't really have as much exposure to Trigun. So it's this weird series that has a lot of love for it in a very specific amount of anime fans from a specific era, and a lot of love from people who are younger, obviously like King. But it is definitely something that is, I think, on the edge of being forgotten about, but is also still at the same time a classic, you know?
Yeah. It's also very interesting because it was wildly more popular in America than it was in Japan. And a lot of that can be shown in, like, the toys, for example. One of, like, the first, like, Trigun toys that came out were made from McFarlane Toys, which is an American company. It wasn't like one of like your like Japanese, like I don't know what like the popular model companies were back then in Japan, but like considering like today, like it wouldn't be, it's kind of comparable to like if Trigun was to get a Nendoroid today, which by the way it is. Trigun wouldn't have gotten a Nendoroid, it would have gotten a Funko Pop. You know, like that's kind of where that popularity laid.
Yeah, it's very much, and I think a lot of this, of course, is owed to its Western styling, but of course can't be entirely laid to it. But there is,
people love the shooty.
People love the shooty. People love the American styling of it.
They love the pretty shooty boy with his stupid Bart Simpson hair.
And it's also goofy, which I think appeals. But anyway, it appealed a lot to Americans and was really pushed in America. I think it's one of those anime that it's really good, and it's also one of the few anime that you know about, so it's one that's going to stick with you. And as opposed to like in Japan, where they had a lot more, less than today, but they still had a lot more anime, a lot more stuff you can watch, a lot more things available to you. So things like Trigun that don't have as much of an appeal to a Japanese audience, right? And so a show like Trigun didn't stick around there because there's more competition for it and things that appealed more to people. Where in America, it hit at like the perfect time and like the perfect mixture and the perfect culture for it to really take off in.
Also, along with that, the English dub was, and still is, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinion, the best dub in that day. There are people who will swear up and down subs over dubs, but who will watch the Trigun English dub because it is so good. I don't particularly care whether someone watches sub or dub. but I will insist that people watch the English dub of Trigun over their sub. Because although the sub is good, the English dub just hits so different, and it is so good. And in like a time period where people didn't know how to dub, that entire team nailed it out of the park. It was incredible.
There are a few voices every now and then, I think, that are kind of jarring, where you get kind of that 90s problem.
Oh yeah, like don't get me wrong. There is that blonde girl in like, I don't remember what episode, but it was the blonde girl talking to Meryl. She's awful. And like there's a couple other characters, but like the main cast, you can look past all of the other weird, awkward voices when the main cast is so good.
That's the thing is like, even with, we talk about subs v dubs is always going to be a debate in anime, just because it was such a ferocious topic, especially like in the early 2000s.
Yeah, in the early 2000s, it was a huge deal. I personally think that if you're still arguing subs versus dubs nowadays, with how things have progressed and how well people like kind of know the area now, I think you're kind of a quack and you need to go sit down.
Yeah, you're fighting a battle no one cares about anymore. But with Trigun in its time, yeah, it's absolutely one of the best ones. I think Tsunami in general had a lot of really good, excellent dubs, because the Funimation dub of, specifically the Funimation dub of Dragon Ball Z is exceptional. I can't listen to anyone but Sean Schemmel as Goku. Cowboy Bebop is universally claimed as like the best dub by a lot of anime fans, and I think a lot of that is partly nostalgia, because like there's been a lot of amazing dubs since then. But I mean, that and Trigun, those all had really fully solid dubbing jobs that are accurate, they give the right level of goofiness and the right level of fun to the characters that makes them feel like it matches. It really matches.
The Japanese version of Trigun, the voice actor for Vash really kind of introduced how he's supposed to act, and I will give credit to him, but Johnny Young Bosch as Vash was so uniquely good that he has managed to secure the role of Vash throughout every single iteration of Trigun. Even though every other character has been replaced at some point in time, Johnny Young Bosch has managed to secure his place as Vash, to the point where people were, when Trigun Stampede was announced, and we didn't know if JYB was going to be in, and he had confirmed that he hadn't been approached, people were like up in arms about it, because no one else could be Vash but him.
As someone a little bit on the outside of it, because I didn't have a super strong connection to Trigun until I recently rewatched it all, because I wanted to talk about this with King, and have a real good discussion about this section here. I was really surprised how fast I heard all the hype around Johnny Young Bosch coming back to do Vash. Like, I didn't hear a whole bunch on my Twitter timeline about Trigun Stampede. A lot of things I find about a Trigun Stampede, I look for it, because I like the... We're going to talk about Stampede later in another video. It's going to be great. I look out for things that people are saying about it, and like what people are how people are talking about it. And I didn't have to look for people to bring out stuff about Johnny Young Bosch coming back as Vash. And it's really interesting for me, because outside of places like Dragon Ball Z, where, like, you know, it's one of the biggest anime ever, a lot of those voices are iconic to people. Like, for me, for a lot of English anime, you do not get that consistency between seasons in a lot of places.
Psycho 100.
Series, Mob Psycho 100, we could talk about that. A series that's so fucking great, you don't get that consistency. It happens a lot, especially in the American side, where it's very rare for English voices to come back, which is sad, but it's really cool that in Trigun they have the performance of Johnny Young Bosch as Vash is so iconic that they can't not do that.
They can't. It is paramount to an animated Vash that if it was English, it has to be Johnny Young Bosch. Anything else, and it is just not Vash.
Yeah. He brings this, like, almost childlike amazement to everything, you know?
He does!
Where he can feel like such a serious character. He can play both the serious side of Vash. He can play the more reserved side, the sad side. but also he just absolutely nails being a total clown.
He is a squeaky toy.
Yeah, squeaky toy. That's a good one.
He's a squeaky toy.
Mom, why does this keep happening to me? I haven't done anything wrong, but I'm always in trouble and everybody's always picking on me. What do I do, Mama? Why am I crying in French? Look out below! Are you all right?
Idiot. There's just something about it that he even brings in. Again, I don't want to get too much into Stampede, but since we're talking about Johnny Young Bosch, I have to. In the Japanese version of Stampede, there's not as much like squeakiness, but in the dub, it's so obvious. Like there's so much tiny little like nuances that Johnny Young Bosch, with his experience as Vash, is just able to bring to the character to flesh him out more and to make him Vash. It's so good. He's such a talented voice actor. Johnny Young Bosch, if you're listening to this for whatever reason, I just want to say thank you. You're great. You're fantastic. Being like more serious though, the summary of Trigun is essentially, here is this person that you have no idea what's going on with him, and you are following him as you try and figure out what's happening as more bad things start to happen to him. Meanwhile, he has these two insurance girls following him around to stop any more destruction that has already happened, of which you still don't know what's going on. And then before you can even piece together what's happening, here's a new character called Wolfwood, who just kind of somehow manages to snake his way into this little group. And there's something going on with him, too, because he's shady, too. It's very interesting. And then the more you watch, without getting too into spoilers, the more characters you meet, and they start mentioning this other character called Knives, and you're like, whoa, who is this? And all of this starts happening, and then around episode 7? No, in the Sand Steamer episode, you're alluded to another character named Rem that Vash clearly has a deep connection to, and you're like, I don't know who this is either. And you're consistently reminded that you don't know anything, and you just have to hope that at the end of this series, you're gonna know.
You're plopped into this world, this desolate desert area, not knowing, seems like the American West. What is it really? Is this like a fantasy world? Is this like an alternate reality? Is this a post-apocalyptic future? You don't really know what's going on. You also, you know, there's like futuristic things out there. It's clearly not the actual Old West because there wasn't people with robot arms out there back in the 1800s America.
You don't know that.
That's true. I don't know that. I cannot speak because I was not physically present.
Yeah, exactly.
But from what I'm aware of, Billy the Kid did not have a robot arm.
I think he should have.
He really should have. That would have been more interesting.
That
would have been
so
more
cool.
Entertaining.
Exactly.
That's why he got caught.
yeah, he didn't have a robot arm.
But yeah, you don't know why this world is the way it is. You don't know why Vash the amazing goofball has $60 billion double dollar bounty. You don't even really know what the context of what that means. Is that like $60 billion American, or is it like yen? You don't really know what that is. Doesn't really matter. It sounds like a lot of money. What did he do to be worth all of that money? Why is he so scary?
Yeah, it's a very cool concept, and there's not a way to summarize Trigun without getting too into it. But to summarize, a Trigun is about a little guy trying to make amends. That's it. Just a little guy trying to make amends. I want to talk about how much knives suck in the anime.
I know you have read the manga. I haven't read the manga for context on this here. I remember like almost reading it when I was a kid, but it's like one of those things that never really I couldn't really get started in it. Like I wanted to read it. I checked it out from the library. I never actually read it. But I know you've read the manga all the way through really recently, and I want to hear what exactly is different.
A lot of things. Oh my god, so many things. First and foremost, to start off, as much as I praise the anime for like showing, not telling, the manga 100% just tells you. Just straight up. There are so many things that you're like, what happened? What happened? What's going on? That the manga just strictly just tells you in the first book. Like, you find that out, like, chapter 7, chapter 12. Like, you kind of figure everything out by book 1. And we're not talking Trigun Maximum. We're talking the original Trigun. There's 2 books in the original Trigun, which is the stuff that happened before the 5th moon incident, I believe. Let me find out. I'm pretty sure. To confirm, the first 2 books happen before the 1st moon incident, and Trigun Maximum happens after the 5th moon incident. But I feel like a lot of people forget about those first 2 books, because a lot of people also want to consistently complain that, oh, Vash isn't that much of a pervert in the manga as he is in the anime. All but one of those episodes where Vash is a pervert happen in the first 2 books. There is only one non-canonical, quote-unquote, thing that happens that makes Vash, like, a pervert. And that was the weird pet play episode.
Oh my god.
That is the only thing that is non-canon to the manga. Everything else, including the groping scene, happens in the manga. And people love to forget it because it doesn't happen anymore in Maximum. And it's like, yeah, I also wouldn't really want to, like, get my, like, socks off when I have become deeply traumatized and I've blown a hole in the moon. Like, I'm not really looking to, like, get intimate with anyone if I have become super depressed.
Yeah. There's a really marked change in Vash's entire demeanor and the show's demeanor. The show, and as you're saying, the manga's demeanor from before that incident and after. And there does seem like there's a lot more goofiness and a lot more pervertedness beforehand, and then afterwards it's more still goofy, still very goofy, still over the top, but more grounded and more focused.
Yeah, like, I'm not saying I want Vash to be a pervert. Like, yeah, that sucks. He's like this perfect boy, but he's also kind of a creep. I don't want that. However, if I don't see Vash in Trigun Stampede simp for someone at least once, it's not Vash. Because as much as it's, like, a little weird, that is part of Vash's character. He thinks people are hot and he wants them to know it. Just like I want him to know that I think he's hot. One chance, Vash. Just one chance. Please, I'm begging you. Like 5 minutes. I need 5 minutes. Anyways, what I'm saying is that a lot of people want to forget, like, certain things that happen in the anime, and they're like, oh, well, that didn't happen in the manga. But it did. It did happen. There's a lot more things that happen in the anime than people realize. There is definitely a lot of filler, but there's also only 26 episodes, and they were working with the same kind of thing that they had to do with Full Metal Alchemist, is that the manga was still being worked on when the anime was.
It's funny you mentioned it. Full Metal Alchemist was actually one of the things I really thought of when I was going through the ending of Trigun. They're not really the same way, because Full Metal Alchemist 2003 is a lot longer than Trigun is.
It also got really weird. As someone who is admittedly a fan of the 2003 Full Metal Alchemist, it did get weird. They did send Edward Elric to World War II Germany, which was really fucked up.
Yeah, Edward Elric was in...
Like, they reverse isekai'd my boy. They reverse isekai'd Edward Elric and send him to World War II. That's really weird.
They canonically have the beer hall putsch as a very prominent part of Fullmetal Alchemist 2003.
It is very weird. Like, we can accept that as someone who admittedly loved Conqueror of Shambhala, and that this isn't even a Full Metal Alchemist video. It was very weird. At least Trigun didn't do that, you know? Like, take your guys' blessings.
Yeah, it's not as bad as that. It didn't go that off the rails.
I would rather see Vash be a pervert than have him have to fight in World War II, you know? Like, I'm good with what I got.
But the differences I saw between that and this, even though I don't know the manga for Trigun, I don't know the differences in detail. There felt like there is some grayness and some things that they kind of just washed over, where you can make assumptions but they're really not going to get into it, and they kind of push through like the last chunk of the anime, where you're like, oh, that doesn't feel like they have the full thing, so just gonna. They felt like more of we're gonna leave a lot up to implication, so you can pull it in yourself.
Yeah, they had essentially a brief summary from Night Owl without spoiling anything. So they knew at the end that Vash and Knives had to meet. And from there, they just kind of had to figure out what they were doing between those 2 points.
It's kind of like a Game of Thrones situation.
Yeah, meanwhile, the manga fully goes in to a lot of stuff. First and foremost, the biggest comparison between the anime and the manga is that the manga is way more gruesome. In the anime, specifically, during the events of July, the entire town is destroyed, but no one dies. In the manga, everyone is dead. Vash killed them. But in the anime, it's only because of the city's destruction that people started to die. It was all secondhand. But Vash killed them in the manga. There are strict scenes. There's a scene in the anime when you're seeing Legato for, like, I think the second time, where he has a dude kind of, like, twist his arm and essentially shove his hand into his chest and rip his own heart out. You only get to see the implications of that. You don't even really see blood. In the manga, you get to see all of that blood. You get to see the heart on display. And then a couple of chapters later, you get to see Legato take a whole bunch of people and force them to cram themselves into a truck, squishing each other. It was very gruesome. It reminded me of, like, Junji Ito. It was very, very horror, and you get more of that in the manga than you do with the anime, which can actually be a huge whiplash for people who started with the anime and get into the manga. Legato is actually a very interesting character, because in the anime, he's just like a weird guy who hates everyone. But in the manga, it shows you why he is the way he is. It explains how he uses his, like, mind control and manipulation. It explains all of that. Because in the anime, he's just like a weird guy who can control people. Somehow. We don't really know how.
Who also has, like, a batch of misfits called the Gun-Ho Guns, who are just a bunch of guys who are around. Don't worry about them all too much.
Who are very, very scared of knives. But we don't know why people are scared of knives. And even when you get to the end, you're kind of sitting there like, why were people afraid of this guy?
Yeah. What exactly set him apart as being so terrifying?
Yeah, but in the manga, it strictly shows you how Legato can control people. It's metal threads, by the way. He weaves metal threads into everyone's skin and uses electromagnetism in his gloves to control people.
Wow, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And why he is the way that he is, he's not just some random psychopath. It strictly shows you, and huge trigger warning, like, oh my god, huge trigger warning. But it strictly shows you him getting sexually abused by this person who has kidnapped him because he was just trying to escape this horrifically already abusive situation that he was in. And it just got to the point where it shows him getting abused. To the point...
Oh, God.
It's horrific. Like, it's this weird...
That's Berserk
It's this
level
huge
stuff.
shock from silly, goofy haha to, oh, this place is messed up. And the reason he's following knives isn't just because he's just like a creep and a weirdo. It's because he's so deeply traumatized, and the only person that saved him is knives, and you don't see that in the anime.
One thing that is really interesting in the anime is the anime does have moments that are that jarring. In the anime, there are scenes where a person's accused of sexual assault or things like that come up, and they feel so out of nowhere. It went from Looney Tunes to Law and Order SVU real quick there.
Yeah, it's this very interesting choice that the anime and both the manga make of reminding you what the worst of humanity is.
It seems like from the manga you get more of a full idea of that further context of what that is.
You get more developed characters. Even the Gun-Ho Guns are way more developed than they are in the anime. For example, the puppet master, whose name eludes me, in the anime, he's just like a guy who can control puppets for whatever reason. But in the manga, it's explained why he's able to control puppets. It explains why he's interested in puppets to begin with. And fun fact, in the manga, he has a connection to Vash. The time periods are also wildly different. For example, between the 5th moon and Wolfwood finding Vash again, in the anime, it's about 6 months. In the manga, it's 2 years.
Right. So it's like a significant amount of time has passed.
Yeah. And I want to talk about Knives because I think he's an absolutely fantastic character, and I think younger me would have been absolutely in love with him. But when I was reading it, Knives wasn't really shown all that much, so I didn't actually get to know him very well. But he's a very interesting character, and he is butchered in the anime. It is shown briefly in one of the episodes that Knives and Vash are obviously brothers. And I don't know, something happens and Knives just becomes evil for a reason. To be fair, if my name was Knives, I'd also probably turn evil too. So fair enough. But it's not really explained other than people were mean to him.
To be clear, one person was really mean to him.
Yeah, one guy was like really mean to him.
One dude. Everyone else was pretty chill except one guy who was a real big asshole.
Yeah, and that's why Knives is evil. But in the manga, spoiler warning, it is shown that there was another person like Vash and Knives before them who was experimented on to the point that they deteriorated. And Vash and Knives find her, bits and pieces of her, in these suspended test tubes. Basically, like, kind of just suspending her in animation. There's an arm, there's her brain, part of her body. She is completely torn to shreds. And they see all of these experiments that were done on her, and they're realizing that could have been me. And that's what sets Knives off, is him seeing that and going, I have been lied to. This entire time, my entire existence has been a lie. And that's what sets him in motion. It's not just one person who's like, hey, you suck, haha, you're different.
Hey kid, you suck.
Yeah, it's him seeing someone just like him being destroyed by people he was supposed to trust. That he's like, I can't trust these people. I need them all dead. It's not him going, I hate them. It's him going, I'm scared of them.
Right, because at that point he's a kid, right, and he's surrounded by, because they're like they at least I remember from the explanation in the anime is like they're only like a year or so old, a couple years old, right, at that point, because they grow really rapidly. But the crew that they have around them on the ship is like a couple people who are their family. And it's like finding out that it's like walking into your parents' basement to find your older sister in a bunch of vats who you never met. And just like your entire life, your entire worldview, everyone else you know as a person, they see you as literally something they could cut up and experiment on, not as a child, not as a person, not as another member of the family. You're an other to them. And that feels like that's what drove that home up way more than a dude just being like, I don't like them, and I'm the only person who says this out loud, and everyone else is just kind of awkward every now and then. Like,
that's what sets them apart, is that Knives in the anime is just kind of like an asshole for almost no reason. Like, yeah, someone was mean to you, but that's not a good reason to destroy all of humanity.
That was a reason to crash all the ships. What?
Yeah, but Manga Knives, although he still shouldn't have done it, it's still more justified and still explains more about Knives as a person. His reaction, unlike Vash's, where Vash's reaction to this information is, I have to show them that we can get along. Knives' reaction is, I need to get all of these people away from me in whatever way possible. They're two just different trauma responses. And they don't show that in the anime. And it makes Knives this horrific, boring villain. Like, he's supposed to be the end-all, be-all. He's this big, scary bad guy that Vash is scared of and doesn't want to approach. But he's just like a jerk. He just sucks for no reason. But Manga Knives is horrifying. Like, you look at anime Knives and Manga Knives would kill anime Knives. He would be so disappointed by anime Knives.
Anime Knives is so... He just feels like he's just some dude.
He doesn't do anything.
Especially for the confrontation that they had. He just feels like a villain of the week. It's not handled really well.
His name is Knives and he uses a gun.
Yeah, he uses a gun.
He's just got like a gun.
It's so weird. It's so strange. Like, they don't... And like, they have the episodes of like build up between it. But yeah, that's a good motivation. That makes sense. The motivation I saw in the anime, I was just like, I can kind of see why your logic grew into this, but it also doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Why do you want to kill everyone? Why do you want to kill the person who was nice to you? Why are you such a jaded asshole? And that makes way more sense. Okay.
Hey, so again, here's more spoilers from the manga. This is just a huge spoiler warning, is the manga differences here. But in the anime, Knives, like, the whole confrontation with Knives happens within the span of like a month, 2 months from Wolfwood finding Vash to the original confrontation with Knives. It's very, very short. When Knives is confronted by Vash, Knives kidnaps Vash and holds him hostage for 7 months while Knives goes and absorbs every single plant, essentially wiping out 70% of humanity because their one source of energy and resources has disappeared from them.
Oh, God.
And for 7 months, humanity is on the brink of an apocalypse.
That's way different. What the fuck?
And then, finally, Vash breaks free. He goes and confronts Knives for one final time. And instead of this, like, tiny confrontation where they're just shooting at each other, Knives is an eldritch abomination. He is quite literally, like, first of all, the angel allegories and, like, the angel, like, motifs in the Trigun manga are so good. And I bet you don't even know that there are angel motifs in Trigun. But there are...
I did not.
It is so heavily implied. Like, Vash is covered in, like, wings at some point, and the plants are very angelic and eldritch looking. Like, they have limbs and baby, like, torsos kind of, like, sticking out of them like cherubs. It's insane. It's grotesque, and it is so cool. Now think that, but think like 100 times worse, and that's what Knives has become. And Knives, as this eldritch being who is taking up an entire city with how big he is being faced off against Vash. And he says verbatim in the manga, you're not facing off against another one of you. You're facing off against Vash the Gunman. You're facing off against a human. So this tiny little guy is fighting this world-ending being. And that's the ending of Trigun in the manga. But it's this huge thing between, like, plants and humans realizing that plants are real, and plants realizing that humans can be good. And Knives having all of these memories washing over him from all of these plants of, like, the good memories that the plants have. And showing that although humanity can be bad, it's so inherently good. And it is so cool. And you don't get that in the anime. You get none of that. You don't get to be told what plants are. You don't get to be told what Knives and Vash's whole deal is. You just get, like, this kind of boring gunfight. Knives passes out, and then Vash goes home. You don't get that in the manga. You get so much more. Where at the end of this fight, like, Vash wins the fight in the anime. Vash loses the fight in the manga. What makes him win is Knives realizing that he doesn't want to do this anymore. And it is so cool! It is Vash's kindness that wins, instead of just a gun. It's so cool, and God!
That feels like when I read the Fullmetal Alchemist manga, and I realized how much deeper it went for FMA, and then, like, that's just this whole other level of context and scale that you don't get at all from the Trigun anime. It feels so much more small scale. He feels like just a slightly more imposing gung ho gun, as opposed to Eldritch horror. That's a crazy difference.
It's just the difference between anime knives and manga knives is criminal. And to Trigun's, the anime's credit, they didn't really have a lot to work with. They didn't know exactly what was going on. And they also had a much smaller budget. Like, it was only 26 episodes, and they had to fit in so much. So to their credit, they did what they could. But I feel like they could have at least done a little more when it came to knives. He just needed, like, an extra episode.
I feel like this is one of those things that, like, it's the big detriment in how older anime series, you just say it happens even sometimes now, but older anime series having their anime only ending, having having to free write and, like, oh, we have to make this, while the manga's still going, as opposed to, like, ending it when the story is finished, Like, I get it. I get why that happens. It's just unfortunate when you get things like this where you never really get the full understanding of where the story ends up, So the storytellers, Naito's story is never really fully realized by the majority of people who experienced Trigun, which were anime fans in the West.
Yeah. So it's tragic, because Knives, Legato, and, like, the Gun-Ho Guns themselves are all very interesting people. There is a Gun-Ho Gun that is a main character that is just non-existent in the anime. His name is Livio. He has DID, and his other, like, member of his system is named Roslo. And they are one person, but they act as two different Gun-Ho Guns. And they have a personal connection to Wolfwood. And you get this whole thing explaining Wolfwood's whole backstory and why he is the way he is. In the anime, he's just like an assassin turned priest who just kind of didn't stop killing. But in the manga, it explains why he's doing what he's doing, why he's Wolfwood, why he's got the Punisher, who he is, and it ties everything so much better that makes Wolfwood's whole arc just that much more intense. And it's a shame that you never get to see Livio, because Livio himself is a wildly interesting character. And it is so cool. And instead, he is replaced in the anime with a sniper who shoots himself in the head. Like, you see this dude for all of, like, 20 seconds, and then he's just gone.
He puts down his big sniper rifle, misses a couple times, and then dies. But
Livio is a fully fleshed out character that assists Vash and assists Wolfwood, and it's this whole thing, and you just miss all of it. And it's a shame.
It really does bring up the need of why Stampede needed to happen. Which, again, we will talk about eventually.
Yeah, we'll talk about when Trigun Stampede is over, we'll talk about it, or, like, close to over.
Yeah.
It's why Trigun Stampede needed to happen, because although the anime was good, it was missing so much to make those characters that much more fleshed out and interesting.
The other reason why, outside of those spoiler story reasons he got into of why Stampede is necessary, Stampede's also necessary because in a lot of ways, the original Trigun anime, while it's amazing, while it's a great time, while I love the characterization, the style, that classic animation cell drawing feel, it's also not, it's got a lot of problems. It is in its animation, not perfect. In fact, in a lot of ways, it has the very anime problem of being static characters, having conversations, or, like, the camera just panning over a static image as they stare each other down, and that being, there's a lot of intense action and movement that occurs, but not compared to what you get into modern anime.
It's very dumbed down. Like, let's talk about, without spoiling the ending, let's talk, like, the final fight. Oh my god. There's like 4 frames.
Oh god. It's so
it's
so
bad
brutal.
for the final fight. And then also, hey, wait,
my
pause. You need to show the clip without us speaking of Lena walking towards Vash. Just show that clip. As good as the animation was, that's just also how bad it could be. It was so 90s.
Yeah, it's very 90s. It's very peaks and valleys. It has, I mean, there's very few series from the 90s that don't have this problem. That's what makes Cowboy Bebop stand out as much as it does, because it's one of the few series that doesn't do that. But like most anime from this time period have this problem of just being visually have visually stunning moments, have some things that are great to put together. You can put an AMV, you can cut up so many moments of the original Trigun and put them in. They can look like it's an impressive, incredible series with all these different moving parts. But the majority of the series is pretty static. That's just how most 90s anime were, but that's especially how Trigun is a lot of it is pretty static. Design's amazing. Like, everyone looks great, but there's a lot of times where there's problems staying on model with characters. There is inconsistencies that occur pretty regularly with things like, you know, who's holding what or what they're wearing. Like, I've noticed that a few times where there'd be scenes where someone had something shot off or, like, gone, and then it's back in their hands and then it's gone again, you know? Like, those things would happen. Those are animation errors that occur regularly, but they occur so glaringly that it becomes an issue, you know?
In the community specifically, in the I want to kiss Vash stupid community, who love to point out that Vash is like freakishly tall. Like, especially in the anime. He's so tall. He's canonically 5'11".
He's literally my height.
It's just that the anime is so inconsistent with people's heights that he just looks like a 7 foot tall, like, freak in nature. But in the anime, or in the manga, he is canonically 5'11". That is what is in his, like, character profile. And, like, in the anime, there's a scene where Wolfwood, like, writes down all of his stuff, and it does say, like, he's, like, 7 foot something. But also, a lot of that is also inconsistent information that Wolfwood was just jotting down to get Vash into a room, so it's not really admissible. But he's canonically 5'11", and that's why some people are like, oh, he's so small in Trigun Stampede. No, he's on model! It's just because it's 3D, so there's never a point where they have to take him off model, because it's just a model.
Yeah. We could focus on the animation. The animation's a problem, you know. A lot of 90s anime have this problem, so it's hard to judge it too roughly. But it is going to age. It is something that's going to age poorly, especially as modern anime get more and more better at having flowing animation and scenes that flow and look more beautiful, because you can do that on a budget better these days than you could back then.
To Trigun's credit, despite being very 90s and despite having the limitations of being a 90s anime, it still holds up despite those silly, goofy moments. And also, it's also why I consistently insist on the English dub, is because the English dub is so good that you get to overlook those, like, small little things. Because of, like, you're not paying attention to Lena's walk cycle when, like, a couple minutes ago, you were watching Vash take all of his clothes off, and it was, like, this cool, insane moment. I need you to... It's so great. He takes off his clothes, and then he barks like a dog, and you're like, oh, hope this doesn't awaken something in me. And then it does, and you're like, uh-oh.
King.
Anyways, I need him so bad. I cannot stress this enough. This video has not had enough of me thirsting after Vash, and I need to shove it in, all right?
One thing that they did great, though, that is always going to hold up, I think, is the music. The music's fucking... They have such a great score. Score is like a really important part of any Western-based series, but, like, the score for Trigun's exceptional, and the intro, the OP, that always just gets me in the right mood, you know, that and it's like this perfect guitar riff that
so
just
good.
It flows so perfectly with what's happening in the song. Like, there's a meme that goes around a lot where people will take any song and it works in an intro, like in an anime intro. You take this song, put it at the, and it's because a lot of songs with intros all have the same beat, the same flow, the same way they're supposed to go. So if you mix and match things a bit more, or mix and match it with different songs, then you will get them working. You will get the song to match up with the visuals pretty consistently. Yeah, I don't think you would get that with Trigun.
No, you would not be able to do that with Trigun.
The Trigun intro is so paced around its music, and it makes it's such an impactful OP. Like, I'm not an OP auteur, I'm not one who like dives into it very well, but it is one of the ones that just,
yeah, you hit skip intro all the time.
I do, but it hits it so fucking perfectly.
So good. Side note,
I never ever skipped the Trigun intro. I never did. I loved it. I love it every single time.
Fair. While we're talking about the intro, can I just bring up one of like my favorite tiny little pieces of details? I put it in our notes, and it's very important I bring this up. But my favorite like tiny piece that you would miss if you skipped the intro is the switch between this 2-second frame where it's showing Vash's bounty from episode 1 to 11. Pretty sure it's 1 to 11. And it's showing Vash's bounty. And then episode 12, or sometime after the Fifth Moon incident, it shows an evacuation order. It is such a small detail, but when you notice it, it sits low in your stomach. Because you're realizing, oh, this isn't Looney Tunes anymore. This isn't Bugs Bunny. It is a reminder that something bad has happened. And now we are dealing with the aftermath of it. We cannot go back to the funny moments. This is now serious. This is dangerous. And it is so cool. It is such a small detail, but it is one of my favorite things.
And I love that. I love when you have an OP that slightly changes to match the effect of the story. Erased is one anime that did this really effectively, and it's during its run when that was around. Erased feels like an anime that everyone forgets about. Maybe I'll do a video on that one day. Anyway, but like that small change. Well, I was gonna bring this up too. We talked about this before to give a little behind the scenes. We both locked in as this is a thing we wanted to talk about, like a randomly, like we both knew. But this is just this small random moment that changes it from being hunter after him, get him, he's about, all the bounty hunters are going to take down Vash The Stampede, to no, it's not worth the risk, it's not worth anything, no one's going to give you money for it, stay away from him, evacuate, get away. He's not a person, he is a literal disaster. And that's like the whole world settling in on that. Like, no, he could cause a nuclear, he could cause a Hiroshima wherever he goes. Just stay away from him.
He could, and he has twice. Get out. Your life is in danger. Leave. It is so cool, and it is such an insane shift, and shows you, without telling you, like, how the world has reacted to Vash and his actions. It is insanely good. It is so cool how they managed to do that in 2 frames. It's insane. It's so good.
Yeah, just a small bit of flavor that changes everything. It's just a little spice you add in that changes the whole context of it. It's one of those small little details. Someone thought of that detail to add that in. Whoever did that deserves a raise.
Yeah, I'm kissing you square on the mouth.
Brilliant.
You are great. Whoever you are.
mystery person at Madhouse Animation.
I do want to say, despite what everyone says about the anime and the reboot of Stampede, say whatever you want about either of them, and like if you're like a manga purist, I just want to remind everyone that Night Owl adores both versions. He worked closely with both of them. And in the manga, he mentions specifically how excited he is about the anime and how great it is. And on Twitter, he has consistently live tweeted the Stampede reboot. And he's excited about it. So just remember, the next time you're crapping on Stampede, you're hurting Night Owl's feelings. Do you want that? Do you want that? He's just a little guy.
You?
He created Vash the Stampede, and you're gonna say that the thing that he's excited about sucks? How dare you? How dare you?
And yeah, it's this thing. It's just like this thing. We'll probably talk more about in the Trigun Stampede video. But this feels like such a. It feels the community around it. There's a lot of people I think who are supporting it, especially a lot of new anime fans who may not have been familiar with Trigun, who feel like they're really latching on to Stampede, which is great. It's really frustrating to see people cling so much to the idea of the 90s anime, what the 90s anime showed, when it itself was also a bastardization of the original story.
Yeah, exactly. It sucks, especially since, although I will agree that Trigun Stampede isn't as close to the manga as people might want it to be, the beats for it are way closer. I'm horrified of Stampede knives. Horrified.
Oh, God. Stampede knives is so intimidating.
I feel like I could take 1998 knives in, like, a fight. Like, I could beat that guy to a pulp. Stampede knives? I'm running away the second I see that Snuggie-wearing dude. He's horrifying. They nailed knives in Stampede so well. So you can argue whatever you want. Like, I agree. They could have made Wolfwood sluttier. They absolutely could have made Wolfwood sluttier. He looks like he just got out of bed instead of looking like he's about to go work a nightclub. But, like, the characters that they are creating are so much more closely related to their manga counterparts. And it's so cool to see. It's cool to see Livio in the flesh. It's cool to see Livio moving. So although he doesn't look like Livio, like he's missing his beef, he's missing his cowboy hat, it's still Livio. And it's cool to see, because you didn't get that.
It'll be really interesting to see how Stampede develops, and I can't wait to talk about that when we get to it here. But I do want to just get into, like, the community's so annoying about it.
Oh my god, yeah. Going into the community. From this, I love the community. I do. I'm part of it. They're fantastic. I was part of it back in the day. But as someone who was there back in the day, you have got to let it go. You will be so much happier if you let it go. I promise you. Like, yeah, do I miss Needle Noggin? Do I miss, like, the hair? Do I miss the chest? Do I miss Millie? Sure. You have got to let it go, though. Roberto is such an interesting character. And although the designs are different, they're made to draw new fans in. This show, if you don't like it, it's not made for you. Plain and simple. Go watch the 90s anime. They didn't take it off Crunchyroll. You can go still watch it.
Go read the manga.
Yeah,
I don't know.
For the love of God,
go finally read the manga, you asshole.
It's free. You can go buy it on Dark Horse and then, like, or go to Tumblr and read the Ultimate Overhaul, which is, by the way, the preferred way to read it. It's so good. But the point is, although the majority of the community is fantastic, but it's just a matter of that it's always this way, is that small vocal minority that always comes out who are just the most obnoxious people. They could be in a crowded room of Trigun fans, all waving their Stampede flags, stoked out of their minds, and they have to stand in the middle and go, but it's not the same. They're telling us too much. Meanwhile, the manga fans are like, yeah, we knew this already. That's what they were supposed to do.
Yeah. It's also a weird thing that, like, we've tried to keep spoilers as much out of the parts of these discussions as we can, but also it's a show from the 90s. Like, a lot of people who have already seen it, aired in America in 2003, literally 20 years ago. Most people, like, it's hard to, like, throw out a spoiler warning for it. Like, it's an older series. Most people are gonna already know what happened. So, like, the fact that this show tells it differently, I think, is perfectly acceptable.
Stampede was made with newer fans in mind, but with enough care and creativity to bring in old fans and still keep them on their toes. I know the entire plot of Trigun, but episode 7 of Stampede, I was shocked. I was as shocked as anyone else. I knew exactly what was going to happen, but I was still sitting there going, oh my God. And that is so refreshing. it is so cool getting to experience Trigun again. Because I can go back and watch the 90s anime. I can go read the manga. But I don't get to experience it the same way I did when I first watched it. But with Trigun Stampede, I do!
What's also annoying is that it's also a combination, both of people who are purists. Purists are always the most annoying people to talk to in any community. I'm sorry. Just being a purist about anything, just let it go. It's fine. But also you're combining it with just anime CG purists, people who hate fucking 3D animation in anime at all. And those people, shut the fuck up. Orange is amazing at doing
You're
it.
missing
Orange
out.
is like the studio that understands CG anime.
They have hit it out of the park. It's insane. It's still... Like, yeah, it's a more serious show. We can't keep talking about Stampede, by the way, but we'll do this. This one thing. Stampede manages to still bring in that stretchiness and the quirkiness of the original with the 3D, despite being 3D. Like, especially, watch episode 2, and you'll just pay attention to Vash, and you'll see he's still stretchy. He's still squeaky. He's still just a little goober. He's just a perfect little boy. And they show that so good. And he just gets to be on model now.
It's not the same kind of goofiness you got, but like it is still a form of goofiness. And I love it. I love what they're able to do here. It's a more grounded series, definitely. But I think it's different, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
I have high hopes for Stampede. People are jumping on it way too quickly. They're obsessed with character development and things not being explained and things not happening. We're only in the first couple of episodes. We're not even in like a full season. We haven't hit episode 12 yet, not to date this video. But on recording, we're only into episode 7. And I've seen people go, ugh, finally, Meryl development. What do you mean finally? It's episode 7! Relax! People are saying that there's only 12 episodes, but in an interview, Night Owl said that they have more going on than the original anime. We have no idea how many episodes there's gonna be, so maybe take a step back, give Stampede a chance, and you'll enjoy it more.
Yeah, this definitely doesn't feel like a 12-episode series from what we've started out
Seriously,
with. Seriously,
episode 7 out of 12? Anyone who's even watched just the anime knows that there's way too much that needs to happen before we reach the end. Let alone the manga. If they're going more closely with the manga and introducing Livio, oh my god, we have so much to do.
There's so much. And also, I really love this is. God, I really want to. I really can't wait till we can talk about
I know
Stampede.
we're
That's
talking
gonna be
so
a great
much
video.
about Stampede.
We need to move on past it, and we've had a great time with this. But we got to start wrapping this up.
Yeah. All I'm saying is, if you've watched this long and you've only ever seen Trigun, the original Trigun, or read the manga, give Stampede a chance. Trust me, you'll like it. And if you don't like it, just go watch the 90s anime again. It's still there. It's fine. Vash is still Vash. Go read some fanfic, man. Like, who cares?
Trigun's one of those series that I think is really kind of hard to nail down. And when we get to the end of this here, it's one of those series I think has had a massive impact, but in kind of a more obscure way. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's one of those series that has shaped what anime is to a lot of older people, a lot of older anime fans, people like myself, people older than me, you know? It's shaped like what anime is and what anime can bring in. It's an exploration of, you know, a weird Western setting, fun gunslinging action, being ridiculous, goofy, all this combination of things. But it's also a series that hasn't seen as much of a consistent praise as you get for other anime from that time.
But the people that you do talk to who did watch Trigun will sing its praises over and over again. It is the definition of a cult classic.
There is definitely it is definitely an anime that has formed a cult around it, and I'm really excited to see what more comes from it. You know, seeing more of it being brought back. This is one of the things that I think is really good. I think this is We talk about like revivals, we talk about like remakes all the time. You know, one of the best ways to do a remake, anime is a great arena for remakes, right? Because you can do so many interesting things with it, especially for older series, for reimaginings and retellings, and that's what's exciting about Stampede, and it's exciting about Trigun. You know, it's good, gives us an opportunity to look back at the original right now, what we're doing. Gives us a look back to look at what the original did, what the original has brought in, while also, you know, bringing us something new. And that's really exciting to me.
Stampede has brought in so many more people into Trigun and just the 90s version in general, and it is so cool to see like this Trigun revival. Like, say what you want about Stampede, and I'm sorry I keep bringing up Stampede, but it is very topical at the moment. But say what you want about it, but we're getting Nendoroids of Trigun Maximum characters. We're not getting, like, the Stampede versions. We're getting Nendoroids of Vash and Wolfwood from the manga. You would have never seen that. You would never have gotten that if it had not been for Stampede. So reboots can do a lot of things for the original. So don't give it a chance. Give Trigun a chance. Just join me. You want to kiss Vash stupid. I know you do. And if not, then you have a priest kink. I'm just saying.
And speaking as a Berserk fan, this is the best scenario you could have ever had for a CG remake. I have suffered so much looking at any Trigun fan complain. I'm like, this is the most. Oh my!
This is the optimal outcome.
This is the optimal outcome.
Possible outcome.
It's the optimal outcome because also for as a Berserk fan, I'm gonna go a little tirade here. As a Berserk fan, it was the worst of both worlds in 2016, 2017 because the original one is not widely available. It's not for sale anywhere. It's not on any streaming service. It's still not, even though Netflix has the rights to it and could put it out whenever they want. The original 90s anime for Berserk is not available anywhere. The movies do a decent job, but they don't fully tell the story of the Golden Age arc and what makes Berserk so amazing. And the new sequel anime, the 2016-2017 anime, butchered the story of one of the greatest manga of all time. And now it's
okay. Breathe, Cold.
The
breathe.
amount of the amount of light you see around Trigun with this new adaptation, the fact that the story is complete, the fact that you can get so many different ways of this story is really exciting. And for anyone who hasn't experienced Trigun, for anyone who barely remembers Trigun, it's a fun time. It's a real fun time.
It's on Crunchyroll. The first episode is on YouTube, and maybe if you don't snitch, the entire series is on YouTube, but I didn't say that, and you can't prove it. But it's everywhere. You can watch Trigun just wherever you want. It's great. You don't even need a thing. Just go watch it. Go watch the English dub.
Go watch Trigun. Go read Trigun.
Go read Trigun. First of all, go read Trigun first, so that when you watch the anime, you're like, oh, okay. So you don't become a purist, all right? Go read
Trigun. Go watch Trigun. Go get excited for Trigun Stampede.
And then tell me who your favorite character is, and I'll judge you harshly if it's not Vash. Listen, okay, to be fair, there's a couple characters you can like, but if for whatever reason you don't like Vash, I just need you to block me. Like, I won't waste the energy to block you, but you do need to block me so that I never see you again. Because how dare you? How could you not like Vash? If you like knives, by the way, if you like knives and Legato, but you don't like Vash, you need to go to therapy. You're allowed to like knives and Legato, but if you don't like Vash while liking them, please see a therapist. Please get help.
I think people who would simp for knives are the same people who would simp for Griffith, and like, you're not going to get that because you haven't seen Berserk, but do not trust someone who is a Griffith simp. Do not ever trust that person. Never, ever in your life.
This is Biggie. That's scary.
Anyway.
Listen, I'll trust a knife simp. I just won't go near them, you know? Like, I'll put like a wall between us, because like there's something deeply wrong with them. Like, if you're not there just because like you have like a weird kink going on, like you just like villains, like he wouldn't like you, man. Like like Vash would give you a chance. Like, I'm just saying, they are twins. It's okay. Vash will give you a chance. He'll jump at the chance. He'll be like, oh my god, yes, let's go. Knives will kill you.
This is getting cut, you simp.
No, you can't. You can't. You need to put this in. You need to cut this and then put it somewhere else. You need more of this.
Oh, God.
I'm just saying. Vash would give you a chance, which is why I need him to reroll.
King, this has been a great time having you on to discuss about this here.
I didn't talk about Vash enough. This is a crime.
I
talked more about
know.
knives than I did Vash because I was very passionate about manga knives, and now I'm kind of annoyed at myself.
King, I do want you to tell everyone, though, where they can find you or more about yourself.
I'm in hiding right now, actually. I'd really appreciate it if you... Yeah.
Are you hidden in the woods?
I am, yeah. Sorry, there's people after me.
What's your $double bounty?
Oh, God. It's like 20 billion right now.
Okay.
I did some stuff.
Okay, working
They
your
can't
way up
prove that
there.
I
Working
did
your
it.
way up there.
Yeah, I mean, 20 billion is still pretty good. Not that I'm, like, competing. I'm definitely... It's fine. Listen. Just, you can't tell people where I am.
All right, King. Well, it was great having you on. Be sure to stick around for more ridiculous videos when we will talk about Trigun Stampede, because that's going to come out.
We cut out so much Trigun Stampede stuff. I cannot wait.
So thank y'all for watching. I hope y'all have a great day, a great night, or whatever it is you're having. And stay rad. Okay, goodbye now.
I hope you have a bad day. Bye.
Oh my God, wow.